So, guys, Stephanie White is the coach of the Indiana Fever, and it's funny, some of the stuff that, like, we've seen about this situation, and some of the stuff with, like, the old WNBA media with Stephanie White. And my favorite thing about this is Stephanie White hates the media. Like, we've heard it. We've heard it so many times, like, and I think she just dislikes the media. She dislikes social media. Like, I think she dislikes all of that. She probably dislikes the likes myself, and that's fine. I would not expect any coaches to be big fans of the Mick Talks Hoops channel. But basically, we've seen, so we all know when it comes to the WNBA, there's this like weird thing where they expect everyone to think the same, and if you don't think the same, you're automatically wrong. And it's just a weird league. It's like a club, and if you're part of the club, great. If you're not part of the club, like, you're wrong no matter what. But we've seen this on on NBC. I think it was NBC Sports. And I'm not gonna, again, I'll play the clip. I'm not going to give the names of these people because at the end of the day, like, I don't really, like, it is something I'm reacting to, and I don't necessarily think that the tactic, or not what they're saying is wrong, but it's like, of all people, they've just like misconstrued everything Stephanie White said and just assumed Stephanie White is Neko Wumake. Like, everyone has different attitude when it comes to like the online trolls, how to deal with them. And Stephanie White's is basically the exact way the Fever did. They were like, well, yeah, ignore them. Ignore the trolls. That is Stephanie White's thing, is ignore the trolls. But let's listen to what some of the legacy WNBA media have had to say about the Stephanie White hire, what she will do about the trolls, even though obviously you can't do anything about the trolls.
She's also most certainly not going to stand for any of the negativity that had been associated with Fever fans. And we know it's not all the fans, but there were certain ones who use the Fever name to kind of spew things that just do not stand for what the WNBA stands for.
My favorite part about that is she has literally said these people aren't fans, ignore them. She came out in a press conference, was like, she won't stand for that. She won't stand for that. It's like, she will not say anything. Like, she will be of the Christy side's Indiana Fever, how they dealt with it perfectly, and being like, well, I'm just not going to talk about it. Whereas they're basically implying she's going to be in the media calling at the fans nonstop. She will not mention the internet trolls unless something goes way too far. And let's be real. It's not going to be nearly as bad next year. It's just not. It's just not going to be as bad next year. Because, look, the debates are not going to be Caitlin and Angel anymore. Caitlin's way better than Angel Reese. No offense, like, Angel Reese is good, but, like, there's levels to it. The debates are going to be Caitlin and Paige Beckers. Angel Reese is going to be in debates, I think, to get into that top 5 power forward conversation with the likes of Neko Wumake. I think she's going to have her own rivalries. I think it's going to be, if anything, if Kiki Iriafen comes in and balls out, I think it could be a Kiki and Angel debate and Paige and Caitlin debate. 2 different rivalries, which would be good for both of them. But thankfully, there's not going to be any bullshit race arguments in that one between the two of those players, because the 2 people you're comparing are the same.
Stephanie White is very outspoken on those kinds of things, and
sorry, I've just played the clip again, but like, Stephanie White is very outspoken on the Fever fan, on the troll fans. She is the opposite of very outspoken. She's literally said, don't talk, ignore them. She's literally the opposite. And I'm not, like, making an assumption based on Stephanie White. I'm literally quoting her. Paraphrasing her quote.
WNBA stands for. Stephanie White is very outspoken on those kinds of things, and that is not something she's ever going to put up with, something she's never going to tolerate. So
she's not going to tolerate. She's literally said, ignore it. Like, you've just made up that Stephanie White is going to start attacking the Fever fans, or the small percentage of troll. Let's not call them Fever fans. Let's call them the trolls. You've basically just said Stephanie White is not going to is going to continuously call out the trolls. She's obviously not going to do it. She's literally said, ignore them.
So I think when I say a culture shift, that is what I mean. That she just will be the kind of leader that really exemplifies the standard that she expects to see from her players, and you will see that as the season continues with her at the helm.
I do want to say this off the court. Christy Sides did an incredible job culture-wise. I want to give Christy Sides credit for that. Like, their whole thing about Stephanie White was, well, we need to fix the fever and off-the-court culture. It's like, culture was not a problem. They didn't play defense, if anything. Like, you could argue the on-the-court culture of not playing defense, not communicating was a problem, but that's not what they're talking about. That's not what they're talking about. The actual basketball was the problem with Christy Sides. Christy Sides was exceptional culture-wise. And, like, you got to give credit where credit's due. Like, you got to give credit where credit's due. Heck, even, like, all of the comments are, like, they know nothing about women's basketball. It's like, man, I'm somebody that, again, I'll say this, like, I have watched women's basketball my entire life. Like, I grew up watching Talker Rovers Basketball Club when they had a women's Super League team and a men's National League team. The women's team would play before the men's team. I grew up going to boat games every single week. Like, I grew up idolizing, on one end in the Talca men's team, idolizing Owen Quill, Bernard Walsh, and on the other end, the women's team, idolizing Eva Cunningham. She was the best guard I'd ever seen play basketball at that time. I've watched every women's basketball, not as religiously as these people, but I don't understand how you can watch a sport and cover a sport for so long and be so wrong about it. Like, I don't get it. How can you be so wrong about something when you are being paid? And the problem is where it's like, how can you be just so wrong? And again, these people are both saying Christy Sides should have stayed on and kept her job. No. You can't keep Christy Sides in her job because you can't waste a year. You cannot waste the 2025 year because you've got your two best players on a rookie deal. And then the great reset's happening in 2026. You cannot waste 2025 with Christy Sides. It was literally the first thing Ellie Gauskov did when she took over was say Christy Sides is gone. But, yeah, like, I don't know, like, and that's where the problem is like, it's not, and by the way, I'm not talking about the players that played this sport at a decent level that are covering women's game. I'm not talking about, your Chinea Wumake's, Andrea Carter. I'm not talking about Rachel Demita, who's obviously doing it on social media. Like, there are a lot of people covering the WNBA that I think do a good job. It's like, whether or not you agree or disagree all the time with some of them, like, to say they don't know basketball is crazy. But there are a lot of people covering the WNBA that do not know basketball. And I'm not, by the way, I haven't watched enough of either of the people, of the person that was talking in that last video to say that. But I'm like, I've only seen that podcast in sound bites, but I'm like, there are so many times where even if they do know a lot more about basketball, even if they probably do know a lot more about basketball, but it's just when your basketball opinions get blinded by Activist League, that's where it becomes like, especially for new fans that are here for the basketball. Like, I'm sorry, I don't give a damn about the WNBA being an Activist League. And I mean that as in a, like, a lot of the quote-unquote new fans, like, have a problem with it. I don't care. If a person wants to be an activist, great. But it shouldn't be, like, a league. Like, it shouldn't be a thing where you have to be an activist. Or you're seen as there's something wrong. If that's what you want to do, great. If you don't, great. Cool. Each to their own. But the problem is that you're seeing a lot of these people that when they're talking about the sport of basketball, that they've been so ingrained in this, we are an activist league before we are a basketball league, that the activism take preference over basketball takes. And that's where a lot of new fans who are basketball fans that came into the league because they like Caitlin Clark, they like Cambrick, they like Angel Reese, and a lot of them stayed because they like other players as well. You can see why Fee Collier has become the most popular player outside of that rookie class, because she just hoops. Like, she just hoops. People like watching basketball. And the fact is, it was basketball over the summer that people enjoyed, and people are going to enjoy college ball because the players stay in college. And the NBA product is so bad at the minute. But the problem is that a lot of the media, because with the way the league had been for years, it was basketball was seemingly secondary. It is now blinded basketball takes, and every take is with the assumption that every single player, coach, person involved has a obligation to be an activist, when the reality is, if they are, great. If they're not, who cares? They're basketball players. They are they are basketball players. Their job is to come, show up and coach. Their job, or for Stephanie White, her job is to coach the sport of basketball. For the players, their job is to play the sport of basketball. Anything else they want to do on the side, cool. You can choose to do whatever the hell you want. But at the end of the day, like, as long as it's legal, as long as you're not, like, doing a Jackson Hayes. But, like, it's a basketball league. And I think that's one of the problems when it comes to WNBA media. And I think that's one of the reasons why you've seen so much growth. And I think it's, as I've always said, it is a dangerous thing where it's like, people want to bring me into that group because a lot of things I'll cover is Caitlin Clark for people. But, like, let's be real. There are channels that are literally here on YouTube talking about the WNBA from the perspective of being able to make essentially sexist content, racist content, and basically to give themselves an excuse to do that. And obviously there are people that are going to try to drag me into that. I just like basketball and I really don't care what anyone says. But the problem is when a lot of people in the traditional media aren't even talking about the basketball. You go into alternate source of media and you can get down a rabbit hole where the conspiracy theories are true. Like, the mainstream media trying to do everything they can in a lot of situations to attack Caitlin Clark is true. The WNBA doing it is true. And that's a problem, is because of everything, the conspiracy theories a lot of the time are true. And we're even seeing it now where it's like, you can literally twist Stephanie White's words and say, this is what Stephanie White stands for. She won't stand for any of this. This is what she does. She's really outspoken. When the literal last thing she said as the coach of the Connecticut Sun was, sorry, not the last thing, because they played in her playoff series. The last thing she said after beating the Fever was, ignore the trolls. And it was an iconic speech. And then, literally, 18 hours later, every single WNBA player went publicly and basically called all Fever fans racist. They all celebrated Stephanie White, and then somehow took from Stephanie White saying, these aren't fans, they're trolls, we need to ignore them. These WNBA players amplified everything. Like, I don't know if it's a listening problem. I don't know if it's somebody makes a speech and you just assume said speech fits your narrative, so you're going to put that on the other person. But the reality is, Stephanie White just wants to coach. She just wants to coach, and realistically, as a WNBA coach, she's been damn good at it.